just the same way that cooking does. And if you want more information on that, I could always send it to you. But
but if you try to consume a raw plantain that hasn't ripened, that's going to be pretty hard on your digestion, isn't
yeah,
it?
you want no parts of that.
Yeah.
That's like, it's almost like eating raw yuca or a raw potato. Like,
Mhm.
no, no, and no.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot of root, like legit root vegetables that you can eat or should eat raw.
Right.
Um,
Right.
there's some, but even those, I kind of, I cringe watching it. Like, I watched a guy on Instagram the other day eat a medicinal root. He just took it to the head. I'm like, oh man. And he was like,
We're talking. We're
uh,
talking. Carrots are like one of the exceptions, right, to root
right,
vegetables that you eat raw,
right.
and beets too. I would say.
Carrots, beets, sometimes turnips, some turnips.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, things,
Okay.
things in that family. Some of the medicinal roots are fine. Uh,
Like ginger.
Ginger, burdock, smaller in smaller quantities. Marshmallow, and then they change. It's just like without, when I was telling you with the plantain or anything else living, as you dry them or you process them or you cook them, they even change. In traditional Chinese medicine, um, and in Ayurveda, um, like there's completely different applications for the same things, ver-
Mhm.
dried versus fresh, and how you use it and what you use it for. And so,
What
um,
was the other one you said besides Ayurveda?
oh, TCM, traditional Chinese medicine.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, most Eastern systems, and of course, any like Asiatic or any ancient Egyptian healing systems, like they understand the the difference and how it applies medicinally in plants in their different states.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting to know. Because I know with the banana, you like your bananas sweet, then you let them ripen more. That's going to be more sugar, so you have to keep that in mind. But the taste is going to be different. I know different cultures. I mean, I always used to have a joke. Some people didn't like it, but I always used to notice that white people ate more yellow bananas with hardly any spots on them, whereas black and brown people like them to get ripened, and then white people would actually think that they had gone bad already when there are like spots on there. You know.
It's true. I mean, with the internet, you have more people culturally cross adopting foodways,
Mhm.
but a lot of that is commercial acculturation to
Right.
foodways,
Right.
and we knew better because we were closer to the land. We have a closer history to directly sourcing our food, um,
Hmm.
and notably tropical. So we know when things are good and when things aren't at their best.
Yeah, and then on top of that, you go to other countries, and they've got a lot more variety of bananas than we do. We kind of monoculturalize, or whatever the word is, our bananas. So we're basically eating the same exact species or whatever you call it of banana over and over when there's lots of them out there.
It's true. It's because it's what's commercially pleasing. It's we kind of been brainwashed into what is qualitatively good based on a particular aesthetic, and that aesthetic of what we know, keeping it at banana, of what we know as a good banana, uh, is done that way. Number one, so it doesn't have seeds, and number two, it can basically last longer during transport from
Okay.
from where it grows, because it can only grow in certain places. Um, and
Right.
so not all of them have the same shelf life. Like a red bananas and the baby ones, the baby reds, they go like that, and so it's not profitable to grow them and sell them in mass quantities. And so they're exoticized, but really they're not. They're not exotic, but we're just not accustomed to seeing it in these markets.
Well, that's interesting because there was a brand of red banana that I started seeing in my neighborhood in Sunset Park, which does have a large Latino community from a specific area. There might be some Ecuadorians and some Mexicans and other folks.
Maybe
What's that?
Panama.
I don't know about that. I don't know about Panamanians in that neighborhood. It's possible. But these reddish brown bananas I was getting, I would have to let them ripen for a very long time. Like I would have to let them sit there for weeks before I can even eat them. So I wasn't used to that. So what I would do is I'd buy some yellow bananas in the meantime, to eat, and then down the line, weeks down the line, I mean, perfect if you bought something, went on vacation, came back, like they're not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
They take a while to ripen.
Mm-hmm. They also have different uses. Different uses for different bananas.
Mhm.
The same way we treat plantain.
Yeah.
Yep.
For sure. So I'm going to plug in my headphones and we can start on this Tupac topic.
Okay. I don't know how well versed I am, but I'll put you as long as possible.
Okay. Yeah, we'll try, and that could be good. If you're not well versed, we can get some natural reactions there, so that's fine. Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, completely fine.
Okay, good. All right, so the news is, I think it's the Los Angeles Police Department that ended up scooping up Keefe D, because he's been putting information out there about his involvement with the Tupac murder. He was kind of known as not the trigger man, but the person who was driving and or who ordered the hit on Tupac. Now he's been talking for years about this, and for the last few years has done many interviews on Vlad TV, which kind of adds to the, I don't want to say conspiracy, but adds to the belief by some people that going on Vlad TV is a bad idea, because you can get caught up in law. And of course Vlad says he doesn't tell people what to say, and sometimes he even edits some stuff out for their own good if they've said too much. But at the end of the day, and I guess people are responsible for what they say on public platforms, especially if they've been involved in a life outside of the law.
Right.
Some people say it's just that age-old thing, like some of the big-time gangsters did it. Whether they started going on TV, they went from casinos, which was pretty legal, to like going on TV, to getting too much notoriety and publicity, and that was not thought of as good. So people kind of wondered why Keefe D did the same thing.
Right.
But I guess he was under the false impression that he had diplomatic immunity. And what I believe the FBI offered him, which was really FBI only, not even the police, the Los Angeles police. So now you're dealing with different agencies with different laws,
right,
who you didn't get an actual deal with. But the FBI gave Keefe D what's called a proffer agreement, which means while you're in that room, they're giving them information that's valuable to them. Anything you say can't be used against you if you tell the truth.
Right.
So Keefe D goes outside of that room on public platforms and writes a book. And now, years later, they raided his house looking for, I think, like bullets, murder weapons,
Wow.
tapes where things may have been said. I don't know if that means he was being bugged and he didn't know it, et cetera, et cetera. His real name is Dwayne Davis, which is interesting.
That's wild.
Yeah. Um, and the story originally was that this big guy who is his cousin, they say he's over 400 or 300 to 400 pounds, is sitting on the passenger side where, where the shooter would sit, I think in the back seat.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying that this guy chickened out and did not want to commit the murder. So Orlando Anderson, with his long, lanky arms on the driver's side in the back seat, reaches over him and shoots
Mm-hmm.
Tupac from there.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Orlando was dead by the time Keefe D pinned it on him, though other people are actually telling me that the other guy was dead too. So my theory was that he was pinning it on a dead man and protecting his other person who was still alive. But they say that that guy was actually dead by the time, I think, Keefe D admitted to this stuff in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, now people are saying the other guy is the one who did it, which a lot of people thinks think that makes more sense because this other guy was also like a known shooter who would not be backing out of something like that
Mm-hmm.
in a situation like that, and that kind of thing wouldn't be tolerated in that world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I guess it would help if I remembered this. Oh, I think Baby Lane. So let's see. So yeah, Orlando was one guy, and I think Baby Lane was the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, some people think that there's going to be some justice or something for this. Some people think it's too little, too late. But I guess with cases like this, you know, these unsolved cases can take years. Um,
Yes, they can, but I also think I'm sorry, I
no, no,
interrupted.
go ahead. No, I was talking for a long time. Go ahead.
Oh, I think yeah, although it was tragic and I think we forget how young he was. I know I forget, except looking back at, old archival stuff and I'm like, oh my God, he's a kid. You know what I mean? Like a
Yeah.
man. But I think also when we're looking at a time in general with how things are moving through our justice system, and I want to get back to this FBI agreement. Like,
Okay.
I think we're living in a time when they're making making a standard out of some of these cases,
Okay.
whether old or not. And I think that perhaps he wasn't advised well or went against sound advisement.
You talking about this guy, Keefe D?
Yes,
Mm.
to talk about the case in that way, um, regardless of what is actually found or his motivations, because really, who knows? And I know that you said earlier he'd written his own book and he contradicted some truths in the first book that was published by an attending officer, I believe,
Hmm. Yeah.
on the case.
Yep.
But considering the jankiness of all that's going on in Law and Order and trying to make an example out of things, uh, regardless of guilt or not, is just, I don't think that's a good gamble. Um,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
general,
That is a huge gamble. And that's an excellent point. What was his
motivation,
what kind of counsel did he have that he
right?
misunderstood something so vital that it could jeopardize his
Right.
freedom?
Exactly, exactly. knowing that other people who could be held liable for this they basically have more means to have a way out, you know,
Yeah.
if they're found complicit in this murder. And to my understanding, and it's very nominal about this case, he's not one of those people. So yeah, it sounds like it's either overtly simplistic or more complicated. It can't be. It is what it is. I would find that incredibly hard to believe.
Hmm. That sounds like a good analysis. Overly complicated or pretty simplistic. I think I misspoke. I think Baby Lane is the nickname of Orlando, and I'm just having some trouble finding the name of the other guy who they think actually may have done it.
Yeah, but all in all, it's still a tragedy, and it kind of does and doesn't make me scratch my head that fast forward 20 something years since then, that we're still looking at this type of violence, that that's conflated with
Yeah,
hip hop.
yeah,
Because I mean, let's be really clear, that's not what it is.
exactly, exactly.
But it's instantly conflated, and I thought that we'd all grown up and moved past that as a culture. And
Right,
we, to see that still pop up in headlines now and then with artists who honestly I don't even know some of these people's names.
right.
It's kind of like, word, like you're still doing this.
Yeah,
It's kind of wild to me. It's really wild to me. Be first of all, I don't see there being a need. You know, the type of there's not that type of territorial competition that once existed. Um,
hmm,
there's definitely not the type of competitiveness necessary for a spotlight. Everybody has a mic now, so
right.
it's like, so you're just making up stuff.
Yeah, and oh, by the way, I found out the person's name. So Big Dre, which makes more sense according to his size, is the one that people think may have actually pulled the trigger.
Okay.
So it's interesting. I wonder if they were both dead. I wonder if there was some kind of political reason to pin it on one person rather than the other. One simple reason, if we want to, find the simplest line between two dots, is Orlando is the one people assume did it because he was the one that got beat up um, at the fight in LA. So he may have just been going with what was already commonly thought rather than trying to stir up anything else.
I forgot about those details. And I think that's another thing. In terms of resurrecting this for public clout, like I think the people who would find interest in it have forgotten any fine details related to the situation. And so any like some amounts of clout that could have been gotten if that was the motivation, it's kind of
Mhm.
your window is like, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Well, who would you be referring to?
So let's go back. So this guy goes to speak publicly to take accountability for a reason that we don't know about a nefarious act.
Mhm.
The easy assumption would be that it's for clout
Oh, I see. I see.
or to sell a book,
Oh, okay. Right, right,
or
right, right.
but still some type of clout is just more commercial.
Right, and maybe, so Keefe D, the way that this stuff came about was Keefe D got busted for like selling large amounts of, I think what was like PCP. Yeah, it was PCP. So this whole agreement and blaming Orlando and coming forth, I think is a mixture of him getting himself out of hot water, blaming a dead man so that the whole snitch jacket thing doesn't
Hmm.
fit as well because it's like how can you snitch on a dead person even
Mm-hmm.
though now I think the other guy was dead too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, like I guess maybe like all that money has been seized
Mm-hmm.
from the profits he makes from drugs, and maybe he sees a cash out on this book,
Got
and
it.
foolishly and falsely thinks, due to this agreement, that he has carte blanche to say what he wants to,
Got it.
where he wants to, and that
Okay.
this is his way of still having some money. And in his mind, the first huge amount of legal money he would have, right? Because a book is technically legal unless you're going outside of a proffer agreement, and it's not.
Right. Wow. And that makes it even more, the motivations more interesting.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, all of this is outside of any type of logic I could I could speak. I
yeah.
could speak
Well,
to.
I mean, I think it's hard for us. Like, imagine if you were used to a certain amount of wealth or a certain lifestyle, and
Mm-hmm.
then you had this bright light bulb in your head that was like, oh, I can write a book,
Mm-hmm.
right? Instead of like selling drugs and putting myself perpetually at risk, I
Mm-hmm.
can write a book about something that people are very, very interested
Mm-hmm.
in, like
Yeah, but
other gangsters have done.
that's true. But you don't really make money off of a book. You make money off of the things that a book sort of pushes along.
Right. Like whatever, yeah, like whatever he's getting from, I mean, I would have to assume that Vlad's guests are making money, right? I mean, I don't really know how that works. I mean, Vlad obviously makes a lot of money, but I would assume Vlad, who makes a lot of money, is paying his guests to return and keep coming and giving him content that's giving him money. I would think that someone like Keefe D wouldn't just be giving that stuff up for free.
I don't know. I mean, we can guess a number of things that fit our logic
Right.
model for these types of things,
Right.
but um,
Unless going on Vlad pushes his book sales, right? Like unless he's like, and buy my book. Or like how you get into those interviews and they ask a certain question and they're like, it's in the book, Vlad. It's in the
right,
book.
right.
Gotta buy the book if you're gonna know that level of detail. And here
I,
it is at the bottom of the screen.
right. My familiarity with the content is more. It pushes agendas and it pushes conversation more than it would sort of push a broader public interest in reading about what was a very um, broadly public crime. And so I think there's a certain niche market that watches that broadcast, um, and
It's pretty big though. Vlad's
it,
one of the biggest. Vlad's
it's
one of the biggest.
yes, it's big, but
Yeah.
but it's also it's a very niche market. It's
Right.
just big. It's big in numbers, but it's very niche. This was more, and so and so if you're selling a book about or anything, you have any sort of information
Yeah.
about that had a global hit, right?
Hmm.
Your job would be to stair step up to a global media market or a broader media market to where it creates enough buzz to get picked up. And the demographic that watches that show, even though it's niche, they talk because something airs on there. The people are going to go talk about it. You'll generate numbers, and then somewhere secondary may or may not pick that up enough to want to go and hit up this guy to want to speak publicly about whatever's in his book. And so he would still need something. If you're looking at this as a cash motivation, he would still need something behind after that book, if it is a cash motivation, to make that type of bank on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and that's not crapping on that show at all. Not at all, because it does its job. It does its job.
Well, one thing, whatever notoriety that show has is like the biggest YouTube show that people talk about, or one of the biggest. The murder of Tupac Shakur is like a worldwide big deal. And then bringing all of this back by bringing up Keefe D, and we found the person who's involved, who's the shot caller. And now we have these exclusive interviews with him.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty huge. I think that goes beyond niche at that point.
It is, and that's exactly what I just said.
Yeah,
It generates enough buzz to push it to where it belongs.
yeah.
Because let's be clear. If you, and I don't watch it regularly, but the ones that I've watched, I've never watched an episode that didn't hit on points that I didn't have to go back and look up the backstory. And
Okay.
so on that alone, regardless of who he had as a guest, it's providing intimate access to information in a way that other media outlets don't do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Period. YouTube, forget other social media outlets, period. And so he has a way of getting people to talk. It's kind of brilliant. You can't
yeah.
not. And so, the part, but so it's not about him.
Yeah.
It's about the rationale of the people who say, yeah, I need to be there.
Right. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of like what would be, the biggest reason for someone to do something like that. And to me, I think it's got to be money. It's got to be.
Money, right? Money,
Because I think money is enough to bring someone outside of their code, right? Outside of the no snitching code, outside, like it's a big enough justification, unless there's something else like notoriety or something like that.
which is what I mentioned before.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine. There's no logical thing that I can imagine that would make that appealing. But,
Yeah. And yet we know that he's not the first, though, right? We know that gangsters have done this kind of stuff before. Now they're looked upon by their comrades as like leaving the code or out of their mind, but there are these folks that have done this throughout the years.
it is. It's true. It's true. I don't know. And I think also, and I don't know anything about this gentleman or about his motivations or what have you, but
Yeah.
I do know that the type of isolation, social isolation that comes from breaking certain normative, behaviors in the sub community,
Yeah.
and then being extracted from it because you went away for a while, which puts you in another sub community altogether where you have to not just reacculturate, you have to regain clout.
Yeah.
When you come out, right?
Mhm.
You're put back in a situation that you're searching for the floor. Like,
Right.
and so I don't know this man, I don't know his situation, but I know that it could be a motivating factor that kind of incites some real desperate thinking because you don't have any more parameters. You're no longer a member in most cases, or at least you've sort of lost some of your vetting to one or more of these groups where that would normally guide your behaviors.
Right.
And
And
so
oh no, go ahead.
and so I think you do find people in those situations who grab at straws.
Okay.
And things that might not make sense, but that's a really interesting type of being cycled socially that plays on your normative behaviors.
Yeah. And then you got other people who are maybe gangsters in their own right, or think they were more of a gangster than you, and you were more of a drug dealer than an actual gangbanger, and they're talking crap on some of these other interviews. And so then you maybe put yourself in more danger by saying, no, I was this and I was that, like, trying to prove yourself. So, the downfall by ego. I found this, and I'm actually going to have to end because I'm running late for some events tonight. But this was great. I feel like this is a great place to end and continue next time. But according to Radar Online, August 1st, 2023, says Keefe D reportedly sold items from Tupac's death night. Says retired cop. He made little money off the book. It was not worth his while at all. So it's not as easy as people think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Right. So yeah, next time we should talk about what those items were, because I've heard, maybe some of the things I spoke of before about possibly like bullets or a gun, which again, to your point, does not sound very logical if you want to remain free. But what was his counsel, and what did he think, he was allowed to do, and how desperate was he for money?
Wow.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I feel like that's a great place to end. I'm glad we got to connect. I got you in my calendar now, and I've got my alarms set up so we can be on point and do this again.
Awesome. Who knows what I'll be cooking next week?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, maybe next time I'll have some solid food besides this smoothie. We both got shirts that were good for possibly what we were going to talk about. I got my Black is the New Black shirt. I got from a black clothing designer off of Instagram.
Nice.
Definitely a good one.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. All right. Good to see you. Until next time.
Take care.
Okay. Peace.